How's it going, everyone? Welcome to the channel and welcome to another God of War Ragnarok video. Now, over the past 2 days, I've scoured the internet to find everything related to God of War Ragnarok. Basically, if anyone got their hands on the game and they made an early preview video, I was there to watch it and take notes. I read every single article, watched every single video, just to gather all the most important bits of information about the game and compile it all into one video for you guys right now. So this video took a lot of research and a lot of effort, so if it helped you guys out, please give this video a thumbs up. It's greatly appreciated and it helps me out in the algorithm. And then to celebrate the game's release in just 2 weeks, I'm going to be doing a giveaway for God of War Ragnarok, and all you have to do is make sure you're subscribed to the channel, give this video a thumbs up, and then follow the link in the description down below. So with all that said, let's go ahead and jump right into it. Now, the first bit of information I want to talk about is the most recent. Now, someone on Twitter was asking Santa Monica Studios about photo mode, and their response was, photo mode will be coming to God of War Ragnarok after launch. We'll share more details closer to when we plan to release it. We can't wait to see all of your captures once it's live. So this is a bit of a bummer to me personally. I love photo modes in games because it helps me take pictures for thumbnails and stuff, and I just love looking at all the different sceneries and just taking really cool screenshots. So if you're a fan of photo mode, this news is unfortunate. But this is how it went down for God of War 2018. We didn't get photo mode or New Game Plus until quite some time after the release, but it is a little bit of a bummer to see that it's not going to be at launch. Alright, so let's talk about something that was changed from God of War 2018 that we're going to see different in God of War Ragnarok, and it is the Codex/Journal. Now, in the first game, you had a journal and everything was written down from Atreus' point of view. If you didn't know, in God of War 2018, anytime you picked up a collectible or discovered a new area or discovered a new enemy, Atreus would jot down some thoughts about whatever it was. So if you discovered a new mini-boss, he would give a short description of the mini-boss, and that was the game's way of keeping you up to date on all the lore. Well, in God of War Ragnarok, there is a new journal. It works pretty much the same way, except this journal is written from Kratos' point of view. So anytime you defeat an enemy or discover a new location or fight a mini-boss, he'll jot down his personal thoughts on what just happened. So if you fight a boss and you want Kratos' opinion on the boss fight, you can just go to the journal and see what he thought from his point of view of said boss fight. So I think that's really neat. And they briefly talk about this in the Easy Allies podcast, and they mention it in the PlayStation Access video.
If you forgot who a character might be or whatever, they also kind of give like a little bit of, description on certain enemies and that kind of thing, and some nice drawings in there.
Yeah, it's from Kratos' perspective, which I like.
Yes.
Just like, because Kratos is a very stoic character, I guess, a lot of times, so it's nice to just get a little inside his head.
It's written from Kratos' point of view this time, whereas in the first God of War, a lot of it, all of the lore was written from Atreus' point of view.
Yeah.
And that gives you like an incredible insight into Kratos' character and his inner thinking that we haven't had before.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting. And I'm loving reading all of it.
Yeah.
And realizing, that's what Kratos was thinking in that cutscene I have just seen.
Yeah.
Now up next, let's talk about one of my most anticipated features that's coming to God of War Ragnarok, and it's that you can actually use the environment, such as trees and boulders, as weapons in this game. There's a quote here from Game Informer. They said, "I also encountered a few new mechanics where Kratos can grab pieces of the environment, like rocks and small trees, and use them to deliver big damage quickly. The addition of these environmental weapons is a small touch, but it turns out that ripping a tree from its roots and using it as a baseball bat is fun." And as soon as I heard that, it immediately got me even more excited to play this game, and I can't wait. And then we have the guys over at Easy Allies, and they also talked about this briefly in their video.
Oh my god, I have to bring up one of my favorite parts of combat in this now. The new thing is, you can interact with some of the objects in the environment. Like I picked up a tree trunk and just smacked some dude with it. I was like, dude, yes!
Love that.
And then we can see some examples of interacting with the environment here in this Game Informer video. As you can see here, there looks to be a raft that has this big chain on it. My guess is you probably pull the chain to move the raft and get to the other side. And then as you can see here, it appears to be one of the boulders that you can probably pick up and use in combat. So next up, there appears to be some slight quality of life changes when it comes to your health in God of War Ragnarok. Now in God of War 2018, anytime you ended an encounter, you were stuck with whatever health you had left after a fight. So if you just got done fighting 5 or 6 enemies and you're very low on health, the next encounter you're going to be at a bit of a disadvantage unless you found some health to pick up. But in God of War Ragnarok, that no longer seems to be the case. Anytime you end an encounter with basically 0 to no health, it will replenish a little bit of health for you, making it a lot easier for your next encounter and a lot less likely that the next time you run into your next enemy, you're not just going to instantly die.
And you heal after a fight. I think if you have really low health, it'll give you a little bit.
You'll heal up to like a quarter health, I think, something like that.
Because I would play, after I played the first one again, I would get out of a fight and have like no health or something like that. I was just like, I'll just die so I get my health back right away.
So next up, let's talk about Atreus. Now, it's been a couple years since the events of God of War 2018, and he's had quite some time to train under Kratos. And he's not the same little kid that we used to know anymore. He's a teenager now, he's gotten a lot stronger, and they reflect on his growth a lot in this game. For example, Kratos and Atreus both have 2 different XP bars in this game now, and they will both get XP separately based off of how much they were involved in each fight. So if Atreus is running around and he's getting a lot of kills, and Kratos isn't really doing much of anything and he's just sitting back and watching, Atreus is going to get more XP than Kratos, and vice versa. If Kratos runs in and he does most of the work, you're going to level up Kratos more than you will Atreus. And Atreus will work a lot more independently in this game versus the previous game. In God of War 2018, Atreus sat back and let Kratos do most of the heavy hitting. But in God of War Ragnarok, Atreus can go out and get kills on his own. You don't have to tell him to do everything. He can do his own combos. He can engage in combat all on his own. And he no longer has to ride on your back to get through the environment. He's more engaged in puzzles in this game versus the previous game. And the developers go a lot more in depth about all the different changes that we're going to see made to Atreus.
This time, we also wanted to expand his repertoire and to show him that he's more of a seasoned fighter now, that he's been training with Kratos for like 3 years during Fimbulwinter. So we actually added a lot of melee moves for him as well, so that when you're near the enemy, it doesn't feel like he's just only relying on his arrows. So then we have a lot of cool melee moves. He still jumps on the enemies and holds them like in 2018. And there's options there where like we allow Kratos to even command him a little bit more than he did in 2018. So I think just the fact that he has both range and close-up melee, it allows us to sort of make it feel more natural that he's collaborating and helping Kratos during the fights.
In God of War Ragnarok, we've enhanced the Kratos and Atreus duo. He's going to initiate a little bit more, be aggressive. He's going to fight alongside you, and sometimes even surprise you with his combo abilities too.
Some of the new expanded companion actions that you'll see Atreus do leverage the fact that he's older now, he's bigger now. And he's different from Kratos, so his magic has a different flavor.
Not only that they fight side by side together, there are also a lot of mini games and player interaction moments. For example, like the puzzle systems and the set pieces. You definitely will see a lot more collaborations between father and son. The previous God of War, Atreus was still a kid, right? So he has a lot of dependency on his father. And for this game, you will see Atreus moving more independently on his own as a companion.
And then while we're on the topic of Atreus, we have this interview done by Games Radar, where they interviewed the game director Eric Williams, and they were asking him about the relationship between Kratos and Atreus. And he goes on to talk about how much Kratos has grown as a father figure, and in God of War Ragnarok, he will no longer be referring to Atreus as boy.
Boy. Come boy. This fight is mine, boy. Boy, look at me, boy.
Eric Williams is quoted by saying he calls him Atreus. It's the idea that we really wanted it to be this feeling of like, oh, I can find a way into this story, whether I'm a parent or a child, or I'm somewhere in between, or I remember both sides of it. There's a way in for everyone. So the relationship between Kratos and Atreus has grown a lot since God of War 2018. After all the events of the last God of War, and the couple years that we don't see in between the 2 games, they've grown a lot between father and son, and to me, this is a pretty big step forward in Kratos' character development. So no more boy memes. In the last game, it was basically a meme that Kratos just called him boy over and over again. So going forward, it looks like he's just going to be referred to as Atreus.
And the Game Award goes to... Read it, boy.
So in God of War Ragnarok, it appears they are making some changes to the skill tree and how you're going to earn different skills in this game versus the previous game. Now, if you're a fan of RPGs, I have some good news for you because we are getting more RPG elements when it comes to the skill system. For example, you will level up abilities in this game based off of how much you use them. So if you have a favorite ability, you will level it up by using it over and over and over again. So if you're a completionist like me and you want to experience every single ability at its full potential, you're going to have to mix and match and select and deselect different abilities, and this is definitely going to shake things up compared to the previous game.
You can sort of rank up particular skills by using them. So like just the basic axe throw, for example, if you use it 15 times, it becomes bronze tier. Which I think is a really cool way to reward players for how they're playing anyway.
Yeah.
So the attacks you use and favor most often in combat, they're the ones that are going to be made stronger.
It's also a way, I imagine, of like noticing the skills you are using less, maybe, and go like, oh, what is that skill I'm not using?
Absolutely, and it encourages variety.
Yeah.
So up next is a quick bit of information, but the yellow and blue icons are going to be making a return. The yellow icons are going to mark the main objectives, and the blue icons are going to mark the secondary objectives. And then the Raven collectibles from the first game are going to be making a return in Ragnarok. So one of the major complaints that a lot of people had with God of War 2018 was the lack of variety when it came to enemy types. People got tired of facing nothing but Draugr, and then when it came to mini bosses, it was mainly just the big ogres. But there is good news because we have this quote from Game Informer. They said, even only having played 5 hours, I believe I have killed more enemy types and fought more mini bosses with unique defeat qualifiers and designs than I did in the entirety of the first game. Not every new enemy is exciting. I killed a lot of single hit scaring lizards, but I am grateful for the variety, especially with the larger enemies. So I am all for having a ton of new enemy types. That was one of my personal complaints with the first game, and the developers have confirmed that there are multiple new mini bosses as well.
I think what I'm most excited about is for players to experience the diversity of enemies that this game has to offer. You will be fighting everything from small little creatures to things that will take up the entire screen.
And then a new feature that has been added to Ragnarok is boss checkpoints. In the previous game, if you were in a boss fight and you got really close to the end and you died, you'd have to repeat the entire boss encounter. But in this game, there are multiple checkpoints for some of the main bosses. So for example, in the Thor fight, if you reduce Thor to a certain amount of health, you will unlock a checkpoint. That way, if Thor defeats you, you don't have to replay the entire fight. You can just pick up at the latest checkpoint. Now, another big gameplay change that is coming to Ragnarok that has me really excited are the weapon-specific executions. Now, in God of War 2018, there wasn't a wide variety of executions. You mainly just resorted to your hands anytime you got close enough to execute an enemy, but that is changing in Ragnarok because now they have weapon-specific executions. If you don't have any weapons equipped and you're just using your hands, you will execute with your hands. If you have the Leviathan axe, you will execute with that. And then if you have the Blades of Chaos or your shield equipped, you will do executions with those as well, so that's really cool.
So for the first time ever in a God of War game, we were able to have weapon-specific kills. So in the previous games, you would always default back to the Blades of Chaos, or Kratos would use his hands. But this time around, if you have the axe equipped or you have the blades equipped, you're going to get a different kill.
So up next, let's talk about the specs and the file size for the game. So there have been some images leaked online of people getting to play the game early, and there have been some different reports ranging from 90 gigabytes all the way up to 120 gigabytes, depending on where you live. We have this image here, and then we have this tweet from PlayStation Game Size, which is an entire Twitter account dedicated to just posting sizes of different Sony games, and they said that it's ranging anywhere from 84 gigabytes all the way up to 120 gigabytes. But this obviously might change if there's any day one patch. So if you're short on hard drive space, it's a pretty safe bet to reserve about 100 gigabytes of space on your hard drive. And then moving on to the different graphic settings for Ragnarok. Now you have the option of favoring resolution. You can play at 4K 30 FPS. There is the option for a performance mode, which locks it at 60 frames per second. And then if you have a TV that has HDMI 2.1, you can favor resolution with high frame rate turned on, which gives you 4K 40 FPS locked. And then you can favor performance mode with a high frame frame rate, targeting 120 frames per second. So that's definitely a pretty big deal. A lot of people like to play in 60 frames per second, especially when you compare it to Gotham Knights that just came out, which was locked to 30 frames per second. So I'm glad to see that this is making it into the game. I'm definitely going to be playing at a steady 60 frames per second. But that is going to do it for everything in this video. If you all enjoyed it, then please give this video a thumbs up. And if you're new here, hit that subscribe button and hit the bell for notifications. I'm going to be covering a lot of God of War going forward. Be sure to follow me on Twitch at SwannyPlaysGamesLive and join the channel's Discord. And that is going to do it for me, everyone, and I will talk to you all in the next video.